Hello and welcome to the Enterprise Talk Conversation Series, a peer knowledge resource by the CXOs for the CXOs. Now to our host, Kanika Goswami.
We welcome you to our podcast, On Stage with Enterprise Thought Leaders. My name is Kanika Goswami and I'm the managing editor of On.media's 6 B2B enterprise technology publications. We have engaging conversations with global thought leaders and industry experts, and they reach over 1.3 million business leaders worldwide. Today we speak with one such global business leader and technology leader, of course, Alain Sanches. He is the CISO EMEA at Fortinet. Welcome to the show, Alain. We're so grateful you could make time for us.
It's a great pleasure to be with you, Kanika.
Pleasure is all ours. Today, Alain will be discussing insights and strategies on navigating the cybersecurity landscape in the current rough weather trends. With so many new technologies coming in, the risks are so much higher. So we'll be talking about that with Alain, but a little bit about him first. For the last 5.5 years, he's been the EMEA CISO at Fortinet. Before this position, Alain served as a senior consulting director at Huawei Technologies. And before that, he was working as a vice president marketing and communications at Cisco. So with almost 3 decades of professional experience, Alain has worn many hats. But I have a quick question here. At one point, you were also the CMO of Nortel EMEA and Alcatel-Lucent Europe. I see that there's a point of inflection when you changed over from being a communications and marketing person to an IT security person. How did this transition take place from communications to IT security?
It is all about sharing the concerns of the board. You see the C at the beginning of the title, CMO, and then CISO, requires that you are approaching the decision-making process, whether you do it as a marketing person or a communication person or a technology person, starting with the way you manage the risk of the impact of a decision, and also being able to express the consequences of these choices in words that are not necessarily technical words. And at Fortinet, the idea of creating a team of people that are primarily fluent in engaging with the boards comes from the shift of the decision-making process from being purely technological, let's say, during the mid-2000s, to include more and more strategic dimensions, business dimensions, leadership and communications skills within the scope of the CISO. And we see an acceleration of these new disciplines being fully part of the CISO job. We can take 1 or 2 examples if you want, Kanika. The first thing that comes really immediately to everyone's mind is how the legal framework has made its way towards the CISO job. And because the reason for that is we're creating new situations with digital transformations, and they require a new legal framework to better protect ourselves as individuals, for privacies, also for the network, for the assets, for the application, for the infrastructures, and for the data. And this ability to being able to embrace the full scope of the risk and turn it into a report that shows compliancy is a very new thing. But it has an explanation in the fact that who sees the network sees the brain of the company and sees everything: the exchange, the source, the destination, the type of traffic, the vulnerabilities, the attacks. So this knowledge of opening the bonnet, the brain of the company, makes the CISO one of the key players to explain the board the risks and how to go about those risks.
Bit detailed explanation, but yes, it makes a lot of sense. So quickly, would you like to tell us something about Fortinet and your role in the organization?
Fortinet is a global leader in cybersecurity, embracing all the necessary aspects of protecting people, assets, network everywhere we need it. And what makes it remarkable is that protection is not achieved through a fake integration of various components, but by having embarked into one single operating systems all the necessary features that are today paramount in securing a network. And that is probably the key vision that you may want to remember when you see the uniqueness of a company like Fortinet, having one OS at the core of every single product, being able to process, to integrate, and to accelerate all these different functions that are necessary, including the absolutely necessary need for having artificial intelligence alleviate what the human brain needs to do to secure a network. So that is, and the vision of Fortinet has always been from the beginning, and in this sense, it's been a very visionary company, to see the network and the security as merging as one and not operating one in performance at the detriment of the other. So all the creativity of the applications, all the distributed architectures of the cloud, for instance, should not compromise of the security. And the security, with all what is necessary to being processed to secure today an enterprise, should not happen at the detriment of the network performance. And how did we achieve that? By having this primary function processed by a dedicated processor unit, which plays a little bit the role that in artificial intelligence, the graphical processor units are playing today. So having one dedicated chip that includes an operational system that is one, Napoleon used to say, it's better to have one bad general than two good to win a battle. Here we're bringing one good general. The uniqueness, the unicity, and creates a level of integration between the different functions that makes a world of difference in today's threat landscape.
Right, got it. So now my first question the second question actually is, what are the recent 2024 trends in the cybersecurity space? And what are the implications of these trends on business? There are risks, we all know, but how is it impacting businesses?
I see two main trends and a framework that evolves. The reason why we are on this call, the reason why there is a company like Fortinet, is that out there is a threat landscape that evolves and becomes more and more sophisticated. The trend in this landscape is that not only do we see the bad activities, the dark activity being turned into a business, an industry. You can buy to this industry the building block of a ransomware or a global attack. You can set them in motion in order to make some money, make some profit. And if you're not satisfied, you can even find call centers where you are registered as a customer that help you as a business. So this trend is the industrialization of the threat landscape. And it's not just a bunch of geeks that, for the fun of it, enter in a system and deposit a little signature to gain fame, like it was in the very early stage, maybe 30 years ago in cybersecurity. It is becoming a business. It is becoming something that subtracts, extracts money illegally with bad practices, leveraging vulnerabilities and weaknesses within the global network. So that is the landscape. We see this landscape evolve a first time, like I said, becoming an industry. And we see this landscape evolve recently, where instead of having attacks that are meant to make some illegal profit, there are what we call wipers, which are attacks that are made to destroy, to disrupt, and they are conducted by bandit countries, and they are targeting critical infrastructure, such as energy, such as water, such as every sort of what we call business critical applications of functions. So, and that evolves. And we have a dedicated department of more than 600 passionate engineers that scrutinize every day, with the help of artificial intelligence, billions of these attacks to make sense of the way they are articulate. We talk about scenarios, and there are steps in this scenario where the MITRE model has sliced a typical attack into steps. And they monitor the nature, the development, the source, the protocol, the way to go about attacking, and make sense out of all these attacks. So a framework that evolves as a major trend. A second trend is we have, and we are all guilty of that, we have created our information systems in what used to be called the old school best of breed, which basically means a problem, a technology, a new problem, a new technology. And that has resulted into a mosaic, a maelstrom of technologies that, with the typical need of having one single view to protect properly, are really becoming unmanageable. In the past, you would buy an antivirus for intrinsic capabilities of the antivirus. And then you would go about a VPN that you would select from a pure datasheet perspective, from numbers that are dedicated to the VPN, and authentication same way, and SD1 same way, and all the functions would have been collected and purchased in separation. Because at the time, there will be always someone somewhere to do the integration. But this integration now costs a fortune, and creates only the integration, creates vulnerabilities by themselves. So what we call the platformization is a convergence of all these different technologies that were brought into separation into one platform. Because one visibility creates the ability to better detect, analyze, and respond to the attack. So this is a second big trend that we have been detecting many years ago, about 13 or 14 years ago, if my memory serves me, where we say the next generation solutions will be made into a fabric, means interconnected, intricate solutions that primarily talk to each others. And that fabric is a platform, is what the industry now recognizes as the way to go forwards, to converge into platform. Actually, it's such an important problem, this convergence, that we have organized an event only dedicated to convergence that we call convergence. And the success of this event that happens not far from where I'm broadcasting here, in Monaco, at the Italian and French border, this success has been extraordinary. Hence, to answer to your question, what are the trends? The platformization, the way to come back to a convergence of all these separated technologies, is one of the massive trends. And the third one I will describe as the emergence as part of the CISO job description of new disciplines that did not exist in the job description only 5 to 7 years ago, and that are becoming paramount. We've talked about the legal compliance, right? And at first glance, that can be seen as a problem or something that is not a virtue. But in fact, it's absolutely necessary that all these new situations are taken into account by a legal framework, and that everyone needs to report on it and report quickly, right? But still, the reason why, as I said, that the CISO is responsible for this legal activity is he's the only one that sees the network and sees the security and can make sense out of the correlation of all the events and vulnerabilities and attacks and issues, general issues that are happening in these two worlds. But the legal framework is not the only one that emerges as a new discipline that needs to be embraced by the CISO. For instance, the corporate social responsibility, which is, if we paint the network and the information system as a whole as the brain of the company, this brain has to operate in a sustainable way. And there are many, many dimensions in this sustainability. There is obviously the carbon footprint. We need to be very cautious in that our data centers, network infrastructures, application servers do not generate too much heat. And actually, just to give you an example, the latest processor, I told you about the dedicated processor, the last generation of the security processor units from Fortinet consume 88% less energy than its predecessor for 2 orders of magnitude in performance. It's like you would have the most powerful engine in a Formula One that all of a sudden would consume 88% less energy. That is one dimension. But there are other dimensions in the corporate social responsibility. There is the equity in the genders, in the orientations, in all the diversity of humanity that has to be taken into account. Actually, in a typical, what we call an RFP, okay, which is the requirement from the customers when he wants a cybersecurity solution, contains up to 200 questions that are not technical questions. There are questions about, like I said, the carbon footprint, the emissions of heats, the way we respect the diversity within the companies, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these dimensions are coming our way, and they are truly important in the way we manage cybersecurity as a whole. And there is also other dimension that comes, particularly the human dimension. We have this vision that we are responsible for the training of the people as regards to their cybersecurity, cyber culture, as we call it. And as an example, we have decided not to monetize a training platform that we call Network Security Expert. If you go Fortinet/Network Security Expert, you will find a platform that has trained hundreds of thousands of experts around the world, and we aim at training more than millions of these people. And this is a true knowledge about cyber culture. And we're taking this bet because we know it's a win-win situation when the cyber culture raises people that are not necessarily engineers, and you were asking these questions at the very beginning, have become actually the strong link instead of being the weakest link in the cybersecurity channel, because they understand why, for instance, we deploy a multi-factor authentication. You know, when you have on your mobile to say, yes, it's really me, after having put your credentials to authorize a session. No one likes it. However, when you know the why, when you've been trained, you understand it. And the users do not have the propensity to push back the cybersecurity transformations and the new best practices that come with it. And this is very important as well, because a cybersecurity transformation is like any other transformation. You find resistance across the company. So the bet we've taken, it's revealed to be a very fruitful bet, is by explaining the why, even to populations that are not technology orientated, you have less resistance, and you find ambassadors of cybersecurity in places where you would not expect to have ambassadors, completely outside your not your network operating center or your cybersecurity security operating center. So all these new dimensions, a framework where the threat evolves, the emergence of new disciplines make the overall responsibility of securing the information system a more and more very rich, very interesting, but then more and more diverse role.
So I think you answered a part of the second question in the first itself, that we were asking you, cybercriminals are on the prowl to identify and exploit zero-day vulnerabilities. What are the best strategies that businesses can implement to stay secure from such risks? Is there anything else that you would suggest businesses do for that?
Well, you mentioned a very important trend, which is the 0 day. What does it mean? It is something comes to us that is suspicious, that we have not seen before. So it cannot be if you have only a typical firewalling or antivirus technology that compares this entering stream to existing. You may not find it because precisely it's not been found. So there is another cyber technology that is called the sandboxing. It's called like that because it's an image, obviously, but you would actually execute this code that you find suspicious, but in a very secure environment. And as you go and execute this code, you will see what it tries to do. Is it trying, for instance, to escalate the credentials? Is it trying to write on the directories? Is it trying to do something that endangers the overall security? So you try that in this very secure environment, and based on how this code executes, you can then take a decision saying, I don't want it, I kill it, or I let it enter, right? And you now understand the importance of integration, because you send this to the sandbox tests it, and immediately would talk to the rest of the information system to take the right steps. And if that is deeply integrated in the operating system and operates within a dedicated processor unit, the level of speed that you achieve is in line with what you need to do with the threat. We used to have, in a long past, we used to have weeks, sometimes months, to solve a problem. We have fractions of a second today. So hence, this importance of native integration between all the components of the cybersecurity.
And that is very true. So apart from everything else, cybersecurity strategies also need to become extremely agile and extremely robust. There is no time to respond, so to speak. So why has the threat of ransomware become so prevalent, you think? And what are the biggest risks that organizations are exposed to if they become victim of a ransomware attack? Also, how can they minimize those attacks? What is your advice?
So ransomware have spread out because they are profitable for the bad actors. They would encrypt the hard disks of your servers or your PCs and ask for money for you to come back to business, right? And that is the reason why it has been turned into a true business process, if you will, right? And ransomware, in fact, can be materialized in different ways. The moment you click on a link, the moment you accept an incoming traffic at network level, the moment you let some code to be executed for the encryption. In the past, it was relatively easy to detect a ransomware. You had the edge router CPU usage, actually, the boundary of your network, all of a sudden accelerated in the quantity of operations it was executed by second, and you would detect elements of code that are encryption mechanisms that you would recognize. And these were relatively close in time and space, so a human could tap into his memory and say, oh, edge router CPU usage going over 80% in less than 5 minutes, and potential incoming traffic that looks an encryption mechanism, ransomware, right? And then you would kill that traffic, you would call the people, and you would act about it manually. Today, the number of micro events that compose a sophisticated attack scenario is a lot more than these two that I depicted here. It is about where the traffic is coming from, what protocol is it using, what is it actually trying to do. And all these elementary components are scrutinized by artificial intelligence. And what we call neural network is actually a series of elementary tests that would check on one of the components and assess between 0 and 1 how probabilities, that this is a step that needs to be taken into consideration in the whole thing. But when you have thousands of these elementary tests or millions of these elementary tests that needs to be achieved in a fraction of a second, you understand how artificial intelligence is actually necessary to do that. And the good thing about artificial intelligence, and the reason why it deserves the eye, is not only because it processes very quickly a number of elementary tests, but the weight, which is the importance of this elementary test, is reassessed depending on the actual threat that finally is detected. So the system learns, it said, machine learns how important the relative weight of all the elementary tests needs to be reassessed and learns permanently. Hence the eye. Otherwise, it would be just a series of tests, which is Boolean logic, which exists for a long time. And the fact that you can process that and do it in a very fast way and kind of recorrect in real time your probabilistic assessment to take a decision is what deserves the eye in artificial intelligence. That is one of the examples of artificial intelligence being actually in use as you go about protecting your infrastructure.
And so it's what I'm about to say now is going to be slightly controversial. Artificial intelligence plays such a massive role in protecting data networks, but it also plays a very big role in pushing up the level of the attack. So how do organizations stay secure amid this AI uncertainty? Both ways, when it's used, it's excellent. So how do you fight that?
First of all, it is very true to say that every time there is a leap in the human knowledge, this knowledge can be turned into a weapon. That is true in every other domains than cybersecurity. But the way we go about countering this artificial intelligence-based threat of attacks is, in fact, first of all, there is no secret. The level of investments that we have made in artificial intelligence, because there is what we call contextual generative artificial intelligence. This is how you improve permanently and systematically your own product. And as an example, this exists into our analyzer that we call Forti Analyzer, that enables you to make sense out of logs of firewalls and kind of centralize these into one database of events. But there is also a big data artificial intelligence where we would process and analyze trillions of events using machine learning, a little bit like I explained before. And there is also network operation artificial intelligence where, because you can correlate between events happening at completely different levels and locations, you can self-heal your networks from one end to another, even if the elementary events that are happening in totally different places with totally different technologies, like a sensor and a router, like a router and a server, like a server and a firewall itself. So you have another domain of artificial intelligence that we call network operation artificial intelligence. And there is also this ability for AI to make sense of very large amounts of data, so that correlation can be found to detect leakage of information, and using also that form of artificial intelligence. So you see, there is not only one artificial intelligence domain, there are at least 4 involved simultaneously in a sophisticated cybersecurity architecture. And that combination of AI against bad AI enables to ensure a far better and holistic, very key word, artificial intelligence network of cybersecurity.
Yes, kind of answers the question, but the risks are far bigger than whatever can be done to prevent them. So there's not really any way we can eliminate that risk. Totally right.
No, I say, if we take a step back, it will be a permanent race between, let's see, the dark creativity of the bad actors and the innovation, the relentless innovations of companies like Fortinet. So the moment we take a step ahead, there will be a step ahead taken by the bad actors. And that permanent race, that also includes, like we said earlier on, the humans being cognizant of the threats, the way they materialize and what to do and not to do about them, is actually protecting better every day our infrastructures. The way, for instance, we operate is we are using millions and millions of firewalls that are installed around the world. And anytime we detect a new type of attack, we make sense out of it and we cascade down to our customers. So it's like someone tries to open one of the doors of one of your residences, and the type of key, the way the key is used to try to open the door is immediately reflected on all the doors of all the houses of all your residences around the world. So at the same time, the hackers are doing bad things, they're doing us a great service because then they open up their practices. So it's a permanent race. It's a permanent, growing, virtuous race towards security, but it will never stop. It will never stop.
It's a continuous work in progress.
Exactly.
So, and my last question, Alain, is what are the main challenges that a CISO would face today? And what is the best approach to overcome the bottlenecks in security operations? There are tools, there are technologies, there are policies in place, there are also awareness programs in place. Which of these do you think help most, or is there something else that, not listed here?
Well, something that comes to my mind is that we all have cybersecurity strategies. First, it is compulsory. The law asks you to have a contingency plan, particularly if you have critical infrastructures. The question is, will we find the women and the men to execute them? The skill shortage in itself is one of the main challenges that a CISO would face today. And like in cybersecurity, technologically speaking, there is no panacea. There is no universal remedy here. But I can share a couple of best practices that I hear from our customers as we go about helping them beyond just the technology challenges that they face. The first thing is, it seems to be very difficult to find an expert, say, in industrial 5G. Because if anyone comes with a CV that says, I have 20 years of industrial 5G, this is impossible. Even 5 years ago, that discipline per se did not exist. So the issue is here not to try to clone the job description only based on the technology requirements as we see them today. And look for the science that underpins technology rather than the typical technology themselves. Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is mathematics and physics and all different components. Artificial intelligence is mathematics, mainly. I would hire Alan Turing, the one who invented artificial intelligence. He would be the most talented knock and sock super manager today because he masterized the mathematics that is behind the technologies. I don't know why Mr. Turing does not answer my emails nowadays. The second thing is the CISO of tomorrow, for the sake of the argument, in banking or in elsewhere or in transportation or in retail, will be primarily fluent in healthcare because she or he becomes fluent in cybersecurity. Because the way he will speak to the teams about the transformation, the necessary cybersecurity and platformization transformation that she or he is about to conduct, will be spoken in the jargon, in the culture, in the very words of the company itself. And then the level of acceptance of the necessary tasks and trainings and best practices and behaviorals that have to be adopted and adapted to the people will be spoken in the language of healthcare. So it will be recognized as one of the peers. So tomorrow, it will be primarily an expert in his industry, and then he will become a CISO. And then his level or her level of acceptance by the rest of the team would be higher, and he will be followed. These people will recognize him. So skill shortage, yes, if we look for the clones, but maybe skill shortage, not so much if we allowed ourselves the proper level of investment in training, like Fortinet has actually done with network security experts, and provide all the necessary knowledge in the recruitment process, in the training process, in the operational process, so that as a whole, the company raises its ability to counter all the manipulation and the deceiving activities that are coming from the back. But again, this is not a panacea. This is a process. This is a mindset. This is a spirit.
So essentially, it's a learning curve, is what you're saying.
Yes, permanent. This is why these jobs are so exciting. You have to learn new things every day.
And you never reach the final destination, because when you reach there, there's something better or more challenging awaiting you.
Exactly. What kills you is not what you don't know, is what you think you know and has become untrue.
Yeah. So on that interesting note, thank you so much for your time, Alain. We had a very, very interesting conversation, and I'm sure our audiences are also going to enjoy it as much as I did.
I hope so. Kanika, thank you so much for these inspiring questions.
Oh, that was nice. Thanks, Alain, for answering them so well. So it's easy for me to understand, and I'm sure our technology oriented audiences would be, far more comfortable. But thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please do follow us on social media for regular updates and new content.